We're back with another episode of App Stories. My name is John Voorhees, and with me is the editor-in-chief of MacStories.net, Mr. Federico Viticci. It's been a long time since I've called you Mr. Federico.
Hello. Hi. Hello, Mr. John Voorhees. How are you?
I would call you Mr. Federico, not Mr. Viticci. Mr. Viticci has already been taken by the New York Times. I'll just call you Mr. Ticci. Is that all right?
That is true. That is correct. Mr. Federico is fine for
all
stories.
right. Well, that's at least a little more casual. I want to thank our two sponsors for sponsoring this episode. That's Collide and Squarespace. We had a great discussion during the Plus segment today for subscribers, all about some HomeKit stuff, in particular blinds or roller shutters, and the Nintendo Switch and some crazy upscaling experiments that you and I have been doing, which is not exactly an Apple topic, but it is a fun tech topic that I think a lot of people would enjoy. So check that out. Today, though, we are going to talk about the Apple Watch Ultra because a little birdie told me that you bought an Apple Watch Ultra. I was grocery shopping yesterday, Federico. You told me you had a surprise for the guys on Connected. And I decided I should listen because you thought it might make a good topic for App Stories too. So I went out grocery shopping yesterday and listened to you on Steve Troughton Smith's app broadcasts while I was buying my groceries.
So I gotta say, I have a lot of questions for you. Okay.
All right.
Because I know that you got the Apple Watch Ultra months ago. When was it?
Right when it was offered in
September.
Yeah, it was
immediately.
Right. So I got it either at the very end of September or early October. Whenever it shipped, I was kind of first in line. Yes.
Okay. So you spent 6 months basically using the Apple Watch Ultra.
Yeah.
So let's start there. What's your 6-month review of the Ultra, and why haven't we seen some Apple Watch Ultra coverage from you on Mac Stories?
All right. Well, there's a couple of things here. I'm going to give you some context. The first thing that happened to me after I got the Apple Watch Ultra is that I caught COVID. And that pretty much stopped me dead in my tracks from exercising for quite a while because I was pretty sick. And as I was talking to you a little bit off air, it really, I got better pretty quickly, but I found that it really crushed my fitness level for some reason. I mean, my cardiovascular fitness level was just really bad, and it's been a bit of a struggle until recently to get that back. And so I didn't have a lot to, I wasn't out there mountaineering or diving to the bottom of the ocean as I was recovering from COVID. So I haven't had as much time as 6 months would suggest to really put it through its paces. But I do have a lot to say about it. And I think, going to, as the weather has started to improve and we're coming out of winter and there's more activities to do outside, I am going to write about it eventually. I think for me, it's one of the things is that for a lot of years, I've been a runner. I've been a runner ever since I was in high school. And I was a pretty heavy duty, hardcore runner for a lot of years. And I was into fitness trackers long before Apple had even thought about them, probably. I was wearing one of these Garmin Forerunner devices on my wrist when I would go out to run. Back when it was, I don't even know, if you took 3 Apple Watch Ultras and stacked them top to bottom and then turned them sideways and put it on your wrist, that's how big it was. It was a big, big device that tracked you using GPS and gave you all kinds of stats. And I really was into that for a while, but I'm not that kind of runner anymore. I'm more of a just, average fitness person who's trying to get some exercise and burn some calories and stay healthy. And so in the years since then, I still like the idea of gathering lots of data about my health, whether it's a workout that I'm doing or my sleep tracking or heart rate or whatever it happens to be. And so the Apple Watch has always been a big part of why I like the Apple Watch. I like that it collects all this information passively for the most part, and that I can then go in and look at it. And if, it does a good job, if there are apps to support it, find ways to kind of analyze those trends and figure out how to use it in a way that's productive, helping me become more healthy. And with the Apple Watch, I was always a little frustrated with the fact that its battery life was good, but after roughly a year, the battery would start to degrade. And if you sat at your desk and did just kind of normal, fairly sedentary activities, most days it would still last until you went to bed at night. But if I went out to jog or go for a long walk or something like that, very often I'd find myself with my battery almost fully drained by the time I went to bed at night. And I wanted to sleep track. And so it became a chore to find the part of the day that I wanted to, when I could charge my watch so that I could both cover any exercising I was doing during the day, plus sleep tracking and all of it. And I tried, the double watch thing for a while, which was kind of a hassle. And I tried doing little spurts of charging during the day, like when I was taking a shower or whatever. But it really still was a point of friction for me. And I found myself too often saying, all right, I've got a break. I've got some time. I'm going to go out for a jog. Look down at my Apple Watch, and it was like on 10%. And I knew it wouldn't last, for the full run. And so then I would put off the run and charge my watch because I really wanted to keep the stats going. And so that became counterproductive, really. With the Apple Watch Ultra, that's no longer an issue. To me, the most impactful feature of this watch is its battery life. I don't really think about it really ever. I mean, I will every couple of days I'll get the charger out and I'll charge it up at my desk while I'm sitting here working on something. And the fast charging is key too, because boy, if you put this Apple Watch Ultra, I don't know if you've tried this with like a nightstand charger or something that's not the fast charging. It takes literally forever to charge. You really need that fast charging cable that comes with it to get it charged up quickly. And it does charge quickly. But like if I do what I used to do, for instance, if I go upstairs and decide to take a quick shower and put it on my I think I've got a Belkin nightstand charger. If I put it on that while I'm getting ready for the day, I'm lucky if I get like 2 or 3% charged. I mean, it's just not built for that kind of periodic short charges. But by the same token, it lasts nearly forever. And it's to the point where I don't really think about it at this point. And that's really improved just the way I use it, because now I know when I see it at 10%, if I want to go out for a walk or a jog, it'll last. It may only be 10%, but that's 10% of a much larger battery capacity to begin with. And so it's doable. Maybe you're not going to run a 10K on 10% battery, but if you're going to go out for, 20, 30 minutes, something like that, totally doable. And then when you come back, you can charge it up. So that, I think, more than anything, has really changed the way I use and view the Apple Watch.
Yeah, the battery life aspect has honestly been like the main reason why I decided to get an Apple Watch Ultra last week. Just because I was still on an old Series 7. And later I checked and its battery health is like 85%. It wasn't the same as it used to be. And I was rarely able to finish the day with an acceptable level of battery. And so often I would just try and do something and the Apple Watch would die. The battery would just die. And so that combined with, I don't know, just the general feeling that I wanted to have something new in my relationship with the Apple Watch. I felt like I could use a little bit of spice, so something new, something novel, something fun. So that was that for me. But then I also started thinking, so as soon as I got it, obviously I was immediately, captivated by the design of it, like the bigger screen, the flat display, it's brighter. Obviously the battery, like this watch, like you can go on 2 days and then every couple of days you can just top it up for 30 minutes and you're done. And like, so far, this is the dream for me. Like, yeah, that's exactly the kind of experience that I want to have. I can wear it for 2 days straight, and I can, I use it. I go to bed with it, like I use it for sleep tracking and everything. And then after a couple of days, you charge it up, and I get a fast charger on my nightstand, and it takes 30, 35 minutes or something, and it's perfect.
This episode of App Stories is brought to you by Collide. Collide has some big news. If you're an Okta user, they can get your entire fleet to 100% compliance. How? If a device isn't compliant, the user can't log into your cloud apps until they've fixed the problem. It's that simple. Collide patches one of the major holes in zero trust architecture, device compliance. Without Collide, IT struggles to solve basic problems like keeping everyone's OS and browser up to date. Unsecure devices are logging into your company's apps because there's nothing there to stop them. Collide is the only device trust solution that enforces compliance as part of authentication, and it's built to work seamlessly with Okta. The moment Collide's agent detects a problem, it alerts the user and gives them instructions to fix it. If they don't fix the problem within a set amount of time, they're blocked. Collide's method means fewer support tickets, less frustration, and more importantly, 100% fleet compliance. Visit collide.com/appstories to learn more and book a demo. That's KOLIDE.com/appstories. Our thanks to Collide for their support of the show.
Something that also stood out to me was, like, now that I have this watch with a better display, it's bigger, it's brighter, the battery lasts longer, I sort of wanted to reevaluate the idea of how is it to use an Apple Watch in standalone mode in 2023? Because it's been a few years since I believe I last tried to use an Apple Watch with cellular mode back in the Series 4, Series 5 days. It was like 3-4 years ago, I think. And so far, I've had a much better experience with, walk out of the house in the morning when I'm walking the dogs. And every morning I take usually a 20, 30-minute walk with the dogs while Sylvia is working, doing something else around the house. And I've tried to go out with just the watch and AirPods, and it's great. And, I've had a really good experience with apps like Pocket Casts, for example. To listen to podcasts, and you can just pick it up from your existing App Next queue in the Pocket Casts app, and it just syncs in the background. You don't have to do anything. There's a collection. I'm sure you're gonna have other suggestions from me, but apps like Cat Weather, Timery, Shortcuts now works in standalone mode. So if you have shortcuts like I do that do something over the internet, like my example that I also mentioned on Connected was I have a shortcut that lets me save a bit of text to the bottom of a note in Notion, so that later I can find that note everywhere on every single platform, every single device I use. That shortcut that literally just makes a single actually a post request. It totally works on the Apple Watch, standalone with my iPhone at home. And if I'm walking the dogs and I want to save an idea, I can just dictate the idea and it works. So besides the battery and the design, the Apple Watch Ultra is also making me reevaluate this idea of sometimes, not all the time, right? Because I still want to have my iPhone with me when I'm driving, when I'm going out for shopping or whatever. But sometimes, for short periods of time, it's doable and better than before. That was key for me. It's better than it used to be to just go out with an Apple Watch.
Yeah, it is. And I noticed this kind of right away when I started using the Ultra, because I don't know what it is. I guess it was phone calls. I don't get a ton of phone calls. I don't make a ton of phone calls, but I actually decided to try answering a phone call on my wrist. And I was shocked at how good it is. I mean, I did not do this outside, to annoy a lot of people around me. I was just, my phone was in another room and Jennifer called me probably, and I answered the call, and it sounded just like I had her on speakerphone on the iPhone. And it was it was kind of a revelation to me, just that both the speaker and the microphone are so good in this watch that I can do that. And then another thing that happened very early on was I was out and I got a text message from somebody. I don't know, maybe it was you or one of my kids or somebody. And I answered it. And you can do it with dictation or, with the bigger screen. The keyboard is really usable on this, especially if you use the swipe, use it in swipe mode instead of pecking at the letters. And so I'll use it once in a while to fire off a quick response to an iMessage. And I do leave my house without my phone sometimes. I don't do it a lot, and I probably could get away with it a lot more now that I have the Ultra. I definitely don't bring my phone with me when I go out for a jog because it's just too big. I do bring it with me when I walk usually, but I probably don't have to do that because I could handle just about any of the basic things of quickly responding to someone and that kind of thing from my watch. I just haven't. I do like that a lot of the, broadcasts is an app that has a standalone mode. I have gone out and listened to live streams of podcasts without my phone with me. There are podcast apps that do it too. Overcast, Pocket Casts, as you mentioned, both can handle that. I think I want to get back to the hardware for just a second because there are a couple of other things. One other thing worth mentioning with the battery is that when I had a smaller Apple Watch, I always felt like I had to charge it to 100%. I don't really feel like that anymore. It's one of those things where good point, right? Yeah. Because it's one of those things where I feel like, I'm just going to be sitting here writing for the next hour or like 15 minutes, even if it's 15 minutes, just so I can drop it into the charger, get 20 or 30% more. And I don't have to top it all the way up because I know that if it's at 60 or 70, it's going to last till tomorrow anyway. So that's something that I do. I also would say I've tried, of the 3 different bands that are available, I have tried the 2 that you have not. So we should probably talk about those, which are, I have the Trail Loop, which is the Velcro one, which is, I think, kind of designed for runners. And this is by far the most comfortable Apple Watch band I've ever tried because it's it's soft on the inside and it's so adjustable in terms of how it fits that you can just get kind of the perfect tightness for whatever you like, so that it's the watch is stable on your wrist without feeling too loose or too tight. The other one, the one that came with my watch, was the Alpine loop one, where you kind of take a little hook and put it through a loop. Those, I like those too. I mean, there's enough loops there that you can get a pretty good fit. It's not quite as precise as the Trail one, but I think that they look nice. And I like how the metal clasp matches with the titanium of the watch case. The thing is that, especially with the one I got was kind of the light beige color, and it got dirty pretty fast. Now, you can wash these in a washing machine, which is what I've done. But when it came time to get myself a Trail loop, I went with the one that's gray with like a little orange tab on it. And I can already see, looking at it right now, that the tab is a little dirty. So I probably should wash this one too. But I haven't tried the Ocean one, which is the one you have.
Yeah, I like it because it's kind of reminiscent of a regular like sport band.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's made of the same material. It's got these ridges on it. Like, it's not as flush as the regular sport band. I have no idea what purpose this design is meant to serve. I'm sure there is one.
Yeah.
I just liked it because it was like, yeah, it's the rubber one. Like,
right.
That's it. And it's a simplistic explanation, but that is the truth of how I approach this. I'm looking at this now. So the Alpine loop and so my problem with the Trail loop is that I am familiar, I think, with this fabric that they're using here.
Okay.
And I've never been a huge fan.
Okay.
Like, I think I prefer the Alpine loop, judging from like the photos on apple.com.
Mm-hmm.
But the Trail loop one, it does seem easier to put on.
It is just because it's, it kind of stays hooked into the watch and Velcro.
Yeah.
The other one, I would say that the first couple of times you put it on, it's a little tricky, but then you figure out what's kind of like the hand gesture to easily get the hook inside the loop. And it stays in there remarkably well. It's not like it ever pops out on its own.
We'll see. All right. So tell me, how do you feel about the action button?
I have mixed feelings about the action button. I think it's...
Me too.
It's underwhelming, not because... it's underwhelming in its software integration, because, you can use it for starting a work. You can tie it to an app or shortcuts, or you can tie it to the flashlight. And I have tried a variety of apps. I tried shortcuts. I just don't feel like I want to dedicate a button to a single shortcut. It just is. I mean, if I could have this button tied to focus modes, for instance, where I could have my watch face and my action button change throughout the day to be different things that would be more contextual, that would be great. But I don't really feel like putting a shortcut on there. Instead, what I use is just the simple Apple Workouts app. And I don't use it to launch right into a workout. I just use it to open the Workouts app, because that app puts the workouts, the type of workouts you've done most frequently or most recently, at the top of the list. And that way I don't inadvertently start like a walk or something if I'm, bending my wrist in a way that pushes the button.
Yeah, I've set the action button to turn on the flashlight, just because it felt like the most common activity that I that I figured I can probably save a bit of time and a bit of friction instead of opening Control Center. But what I hope that Apple will do with watchOS, oh gosh, what's the next version? 9, 10?
10.
10. So what I'm hoping that Apple will do with watchOS 10, I mean, besides custom watch faces, I'm still holding out hope for that. But really, let me program the action button to do different things depending on different contexts, right? So a very basic thing is, if I'm using, let me define the behavior of the action button, at the very least, based on the foreground app. So maybe if nothing is going on and I'm on the watch face, I press the action button and the flashlight turns on. But if I'm doing a workout, then maybe in that case, the action button could contextually switch from turning on the flashlight to, I don't know, pausing the workout or something workout related. Or maybe if, Pocket Casts or music are in the foreground and I press the action button, then maybe that should skip or pause playback. So the ability to define different contexts with different behaviors for the action button, I think that will go a long way toward making the button more useful, because it is like a premium spot on the Apple Watch.
It really is,
It's a dedicated physical button on the watch, and it just feels a little underused. Like its potential feels underused right now.
Yeah, it really does. One thing I thought of this morning, and I want to see what you think of this, is that I like the idea of a contextual button so that it could be like play, pause in music, but you also want to preserve whatever that kind of home base action is, whatever it is you decide should be the default action. And my thought was, maybe if you're on a watch face, it should always be the default action. When you're in an app, it would be contextual. But if you were in the app, you could also get to the default action by maybe a double press of the action button, so the default was always available even if you were using some kind of contextual action.
That's a good suggestion. You should file feedback.
This episode of App Stories is brought to you by Squarespace. Squarespace is the all-in-one platform for building your brand and growing your business online. You can stand out with a beautiful website, engage with your audience, and sell anything, your products, services, and even the content you create. Squarespace has got you covered. With Squarespace, you can stand out in any inbox with Squarespace email campaigns, Why not encourage your visitors to sign up as email subscribers and start them on the journey to becoming loyal customers? Just start with an email template and customize it by applying your brand ingredients like site colors and logo. Plus, built-in analytics measure the impact of every send. Sell your products in an online store. Whether you sell physical goods or digital products, Squarespace has the tools you need to get started online. Plus, you can start blogging. There's been a real resurgence in blogging recently, and Squarespace has powerful tools to share your stories, photos, videos, and updates. You'll be able to categorize, share, and schedule your posts to make your content work for you. Squarespace is an incredibly simple way to get started with a website. When I got started, before I was even working with Federico on Mac Stories, I started a Squarespace site. That's because I was looking into app development. And I knew that once I had an app to sell, that people would want to learn more than just was available on the App Store. So I had a website with all the details about what the app was all about and explaining who I was, because I was relatively new to the developer community and the Apple community in general. And so having a place where people can go to learn more about you and your business is a fantastic starting point. And what makes Squarespace special is that you don't need to be a developer in order to be able to set up a site. It's super easy to pick a template and make it your own. So head on over to squarespace.com/appstories today for a free trial with no credit card required. And when you're ready to launch, use the offer code AppStories to save 10% off your first purchase of a website or domain. That's squarespace.com/appstories. And when you decide to sign up, use the offer code AppStories to get 10% off your first purchase and to show your support of the show. Our thanks to Squarespace for supporting App Stories.
All right, so give me the apps, okay? This is called App Stories.
Yes.
I came here for the watch apps.
All right.
What should I try? What should I install?
All right. So as I've already explained, most of my use of the Apple Watch is as a fitness tracker. So most of my apps are going to be that. And I think the issue, I'm going to start with the action button, an app that uses the action button well, because I think part of the problem with the action button isn't just something you can lay at the footsteps of Apple. It's third-party developers. And I think a lot of third-party developers haven't really taken full advantage of this yet. One app that has done a good job with it, though, is an app called Footpath. And Footpath is an app that I think I discovered it through our Club Mac Stories Plus Discord. Someone had suggested it there. And it's been around for quite a while, but I didn't really know about it. And it does something that came in really handy when I moved to a new town, which is it allows you to use your phone to trace with your finger walking routes or jogging or hiking routes and tell you, how far that is, which is really handy when you don't know a new area. And then it can do maps and turn-by-turn directions. And it has Apple Watch Ultra integration. And what the integration does with the Apple Watch Ultra is it lets you choose what the action button does. The action button can either show you a map so you can see where you're going, or you can have it speak the next turn. So it'll just do audible cues in your headphones or out loud if you're not using headphones while you're using the app. And so this one is a very nice one if you're into walking. You can use it either as the workout app itself, or you can use it in conjunction with another workout app where Footpath is really just providing you the mapping features, while something like Apple Workouts is providing you the fitness and workout tracking.
I have a few recommendations for you. Mine are pretty obvious because I'm sort of re-entering the Apple Watch ecosystem now with the enthusiasm that I haven't had in a while. So I already mentioned Pocket Casts, Shortcuts, Care Weather, Timery, these folks.
Yep.
But three I want to mention. M-Browser. This is like a tiny browser for your Apple Watch. And you may wonder why would you ever want to browse the web on your Apple Watch? And you normally wouldn't. But a very simple use case for me is I went in, I marked macstories.net as a favorite. So if I'm out and about and I want to check if you publish something, for example, super quick. I can just
that is a good
browser,
idea.
tap on the favorite, and you can just see also because the screen is tiny, so I can just scroll enough to see the latest headline on Mac stories, and that works. Spotify has a pretty good watch app now, and my favorite part about it is that it integrates with the existing Spotify Connect system, meaning if you got Spotify playing on another computer, you can control the playback from your watch. It's sort of, because of the Spotify Connect's integration, the Spotify app on the watch, it acts as a sort of remote for your Spotify setup. So for example, I had Spotify playing on my computer today, but the sound was going to my Google Nest Hub on my desk. And I was able to control all of that, the playback and the output from the watch, because it sort of tapped into my existing setup. And of course, you can also listen directly on the watch. You can see your playlists and you can connect to AirPods. Like, you can use it as a regular music app, but you can also use it as a remote for Spotify Connect, which is cool. And lastly, TickTick is the task manager that I'm trying at the moment. If only because it checks all the boxes of a cross-platform task manager. I really needed to have the cross-platform support for reasons that I'll explain in the future. It's a cross-platform, looks decent, although I'm not a fan of I think the folks at TickTick could really use the help with the English translations. It reminds me of Qbox.
Oh, sure.
Before they completely redid their English translations. But it's also a native watch app that can run in standalone mode, and it's super fast. And you'd be surprised, like the other obvious contender was Todoist, but Todoist, despite the fact that they recently, and by recently I mean in November, they rolled out their completely re-engineered, or so they said, watch app, they didn't re-engineer it in a way that it worked standalone.
That's too bad.
On watchOS. And that's too bad. I would have picked Todoist, but they don't have a standalone watch app, and it really needed to have cross-platform, but also totally independent on the watch. So TickTick, we're playing around with it. It's very powerful and also very liberating to have it standalone on the Apple Watch.
All right, let me hit you with 3 last apps too. The first one is Audible, which is the book, audio book app, and it's standalone. And that's something that I think when I bought a new Kindle, I had Audible for free for a little while, and I got into it, and I extended the subscription for a while, and was listening to some books when we were going on longer car trips. And when we got back from one of those trips, I thought, oh, you know what? I haven't finished this book. I thought I would finish it on my watch, and I did that going out for walks, which is really nice. Another one is Tempo. Tempo is an app for walkers and runners that tracks your stats, and it also, I believe, is independent on the watch. And I really like the complications. One of the complications that I use is a bar graph that just kind of gives me a quick view into how far I've gone during the past week or so. With it's kind of like a reminder to keep me going on that. And then Gentler Streak, which is probably it's the latest.
Everybody's talking about this app this week.
This is a good work. This is a really great app. It just came out with its 3.0. It is designed first and foremost around the Apple Watch, with the iPhone being kind of the secondary place you go to see some of the statistics in a different way. But it's kind of a holistic approach to fitness, I guess, and wellness. The idea is you shouldn't have to feel bad about the fact that you haven't closed your rings. Instead, it gives you kind of a band of where you are in your fitness day to day. And it'll show you, oh, you know what? You're kind of outside the bounds. You've done a little too much. Maybe you should take a day off, back off, and rest a little bit, which I kind of appreciate. But by the same token, if you see it dipping too far, you know what? You've been a little lazy. You got to get out there and do something. And it doesn't mean you have to go out and double your efforts and hurt yourself. It means maybe just go out for a little bit longer, walk that day or whatever it happens to be. And what I've found is, being someone who used to be very into, maybe a little too into running, I am very competitive with myself, and I have a bad tendency to hurt myself when I exercise. And what I like about this is that I haven't done that. It's been a slower path upwards towards getting back in shape, but by the same token, it's been a more consistent path. And it's really helped me stick with it over the last month or so that I've been using the app. And on the watch, you can start the workouts there, or you can use a complication to get it gives you like a little gauge that shows you, are you kind of in the middle of your band of where you are in terms of recovery and wearing yourself out, or at one end or the other. You can kind of see that at a glance. And I like that reminder to know whether I should be going out and pushing a little harder today, or maybe just taking a day off. All right, Federico, that's a good discussion. I think the one thing I will say in closing is that if you've ever thought about getting the Apple Watch, don't be turned off by the fact that it is marketed in part as something for ultra marathoners, okay?
Yes.
Or mountaineers.
It's also for nerds.
It's also for nerds, and it's for anybody. And I think that if it will help you, become more fit or deal with your notifications or whatever it happens to be, it is worth it and a good thing to try, because I really do feel like, despite kind of the hardcore fitness buff vibe that is all around this Apple Watch, it's actually just really at its core the best Apple Watch, primarily because of its battery life and the big screen, which just makes it easier to use. So with that, we will close out the episode. You can find me and Federico over at macstories.net. We're both on Mastodon too, and we have special URLs set up so you can find our profiles and follow us there. Federico's is vitici.macstories.net, and mine is johnvorhees.macstories.net. We're also on Instagram. Federico is at Vitici. That's VITICCI. And I'm at John Voorhees, JOHNVOORHEES. And last but not least, I have to thank our sponsors for this episode, both Collide and Squarespace. Thanks for them for supporting the show, and we will see you next week. Talk to you later, Federico.
Ciao, John.